Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the fourth of our breakfast show mornings. I think it's the fifth day of the Wigtown Book Festival. And it's myself, Ben, and Beth of
Hello.
the Bookshop Band hosting a very informal breakfast chat start to the day up here in Scotland's Booktown. And I'd love, really happy and delighted to be joined by two wonderful people, Marjorie Lotfy-Gill and Hugh Macmillan. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. We will have a chat with you as we go, but we thought we'd start off with a song to start the morning. And this song is like a found lines poetry song where we've taken the first lines of many books and hacked them together into some song that makes no sense whatsoever. And we're going to play it for you now. And the song is called Once Upon a Time. And it's your challenge, as the audience is out there, to see if you can spot which books these first lines come from. And if you can post up in the conversation, in your feedback and Twitter feeds and wherever you are, we'll try and read out read out your guesses as to where the first lines are. Okay, so here we go. I haven't played this for
I know, who knows how it's going to go.
Okay, there we go, I got it. Okay, here we go. Just take this headphones off.
Yeah, do you know what? I might do the same. A bit easier, isn't it?
Okay, so it's called Once Upon a Time. Well, good morning, guys. How are you doing? Marjorie and Hugh, it's lovely to see you. Marjorie, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Wigtown.
You're in
I've arrived
Wigtown.
late last night, yep, and
Great.
just here for a couple of days to do bits and
Lovely.
pieces. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Hugh, whereabouts are you?
I am in the People's Republic of Pen Punt.
Nice.
So not too far away.
No, not too far away.
They
About
make
50
great,
miles.
you make great honey in Pen Pont. I have a
They
couple
do
of
make,
pots of
they
your honey.
really, yeah, they
Ooh.
sell it in the village shop. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's lovely, isn't it?
it is. I
I
think
have to
that's where I
say,
got it.
Good to know.
the butcher here, Cronnies, has a good selection of local honey, and I have to say I'm very partial to local honey. And we're also joined by our third guest this morning. Hi, Davey.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
Hooray!
Man,
Morning. You're very, very early because actually it was the 28th of October apparently. That,
I'm running a month ahead, which is
Yeah.
quite unusual for me to be so punctual.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So this is the breakfast show, and these are our three guests, and we are going to spend about 10 minutes or so with each guest, and then play a song in response, possibly, to that person. So we're going to start off with Hugh Macmillan. So that was our sort of found poetry, stolen, found lines, song, literature, and Hugh, you are a marvellous poet, so that's our amazing link.
that's what a
It's good,
what a
isn't it?
satisfying link that is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very link. And Hugh, I first came across you. I mean, we've only been in Wigtown a few years, but my first proper interaction with you was last year at the Book Festival, producing the map room in where sort of. And we had a big map of all the sort of Gaelic names and their origins, and then we had a map of people from Dumfries and Galloway and what they'd done for the world, and you've written some wonderful panels for that. People are. Can you tell us one character from one person from Dumfries and Galloway that's had an impact on the world?
well, there are so many. Obviously, you've
There
got
are so many. Yeah,
great scientists and
just
great
one.
linguists and so on. Let me think now. I think my favourite one. Let me think now. There's so many. There's so many. I do. My anti-hero is John Paul Jones.
Uh-huh.
I particularly dislike him. He's had massively good press, John Paul Jones, but he's mired in all sorts of really disgraceful episodes in his life. So I did mention him in the exhibition, trying to redress the balance and say, what an unnecessarily sort of elevated reputation he's got. Whereas, he was just a bit dodgy, let's face it.
And had a big impact on the world in
Well,
his
he had a
own way.
big
But
impact. I suppose he's a great figure in American naval history, isn't he?
yes, he is. But for this year, you've been involved in a project for the book festival that's come out of something that you've done during lockdown. Is that right? It's called The Plague of Poems. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, during lockdown, I just started mucking about really with the idea of filming myself, just gibbering every day about poetry, my own preferences and stuff like that. And then after a week, I thought, well, maybe I should sort of look at my contacts list and see if I can get poets that I know to video a poem of them reading their own poetry, and then put one of these on every day. And it sort of took off after that. And I had there's something like 114 poets, putting a daily video into this site, and it included links and the text of the poem and various other wee bits and pieces and so on. So it's fantastically successful. It covered all of it. I mean, there were poets from Canada. The poet laureate of New Zealand was in it. The poet laureate of the Navajo Nation, and all sorts of really fantastic writers. And
So
that
from
went
all
on
around the
from
world,
March
yeah.
to July. And
Mm.
so I thought with Wigton coming up, talked to Adrian, and Adrian thought the same sort of idea, the same sort of format, which was a series of poets each for one day of the festival, with the same sort of idea, them sort of recording a poem of their own and putting that out on the site along with the text and links and biographical information and any other sort of interesting stuff. that went with it. So that's the 11 Poets project that we've got going in Wigtown just now.
Right, and how's that go? Is that going out one a day, so one for each
One a
day?
day, yes. I think this is number 4. I think it's Martin and Neil this morning from Dumfries is number 4. Wonderful surreal poem he's written. So you should check it out, folks. They're great. It's great stuff. It really is amazingly good stuff, and it's purely regional. These are purely regional writers.
That's amazing. And all the poems are written specifically for this time. Are
Well,
they
I
kind
think
of?
it's a Solway theme. It's a watery kind of theme, so it's pretty nebulous, But I do believe some of them were written specifically for the project. But given that some of them had 3 days' notice in which to do it, I think they've dusted off a poem about water they did earlier.
Sure, but it's a great creative project. I mean, we find with the Bookshop Band quite often we have very limited time to do something, but it's very that kind of these limitations often give you a great creative kind of flow because you have to write something that
Well,
short amount of
you're under
time.
pressure, aren't you? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you do sometimes create the goods under great pressure. Other times you just collapse.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great to have that much creativity over this period, I think, because I don't know, there's
Well, I
so
think
many
it's a wonderful thing.
negative things. Yeah.
It's wonderful evidence that Dumfries and Galloway is full of really good writers. When I started writing, I mean, there were 3 or 4 of us or whatever, and you felt you had to get acceptance in the Central Belt before, before you became before you were validated as a writer. Now nowadays, I think Dumfries and Galloway is heading towards being a literary sort of powerhouse in its own. We don't have to go creeping up to the Central Belt to get. To get approval anymore. We have our wonderful centres of excellence here. You've got Wigtown, you've got the Stove, you've got what's going on, Annie Wright's poetry group in Moniai, Vivian Jones' poetry group in Powfoot, all sorts of things going on in the region itself, So we deserve to be thought of as one of the centres of poetry in Scotland, not some peripheral area. I think all we need is a publishing house.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
David,
that's all we lack.
Hugh, would you be able to read us one of your poems while you're here? While we've got you, I think it would be a nice way to start off.
Wait a minute, I'll write one. No, hold on. I'll read this
pressure.
one. This one's about the virus itself. It's called The New Old Age. It's a speculation about, there's much being made how humanity will change because of this virus and how we'll emerge as much more balanced people. And I suspect that will not be the case. It's called The New Old Age. I'm looking at the contents of my coat pocket, a train ticket, a pencil plucked from the playground, a receipt for a steak pie and large glass of Sauvignon Blanc, and I think I should put these on a shelf as symbols of a lost and easy age of innocence. It is enough almost to make you weep, this sacred detritus, rubbish pregnant now with such meaning. When we emerge blinking into the future with our long hair, our chipped teeth, our bandaged specs, will those months of self-help, yoga, soda bread and Scrabble swell our brains to the size of a new world? Will poetry have seen us through? I think, jealous of their high living freedom through our long days of want and envy, we will swarm out to find a rook to strangle, while nature scatters with a collective sigh of, here's this lot on the piss again.
That was fun. That was wonderful.
So true. I
Yeah.
think all
Well,
those
let's hope it's
things.
not true, but I suspect it will
Yeah. But just a lot of the elements of just reminiscent of our lockdown experiences, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've just
Thank
had a
you.
note saying that the Galloway in the World exhibition is on the website, on the Wigtown Book Festival website.
That's right,
So,
and the 11 Poets is on the library part of the website, and the first 3 poets were on the podcast that's just recently come out. So Celia Donovan, Fiona Lindsay, and I can't remember who the other one was. The first 3 are on.
Peter.
Peter
Peter, I
Roberts,
think.
of course, from Money Eye, marvelous poet. So the first 3 are on the podcast, so you can hear them there, but you can see them
Fantastic.
on the site, obviously.
Well, thank you so much. And so, everyone, I do encourage you to check those out. Released daily, but also catch up from the previous days. A poem for each day from 11 regional up and coming. I like the way you described it before we went on, in various stages of emergence, but
Yeah.
all
But if you
emerging.
read the poetry, you'll see they're fully emerged. They're fully immersed
Yeah.
and functioning poets.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank
so,
you.
We are now going to move on to our. Where should we go next? Should we go top right or bottom?
Oh, let's go top right.
Let's go top right.
Yeah.
So Marjorie Lotby-Gill, the chairman of the trustees of the Wigtown Book Festival, as I live and breathe, and also the co-founder of the Open Book Project. Is that right, Marjorie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you
It's
tell us-
different from the open book in Wigtown, so it's
And
confusing.
Very confusing. Very
It's really
confusing.
confusing.
So the other Open Book Project is an Airbnb, and that is not Marjorie's project. Marjorie, what is your Open Book Project?
So we're a charity that started in 2013, and what we do is read with folks or people, groups of people across Scotland. So the idea is we come together. It's a bit like a book group that we all would know, except you don't have to do any homework. And in fact, you're positively discouraged from turning up having read anything in advance, which is great for people like me who never finish the book in time. So you turn up and you do all the reading in the group. You read a bit of prose usually and finish with a poem, either a short story or you're working your way through a book in a group. But it's all done aloud for lots of reasons, largely because of the homework, but also because it means if you can't read or you have issues with vision or English is your second language or whatever, lots of reasons people don't like to read or don't like text necessarily, you can join in. So a great place that we do that, a great example of that is in the prisons. We're in 9 of the Scottish prisons every week, getting groups of people together to read together, some of whom don't read, some of whom can't read, some of whom are doing a higher or an OU degree in English. And they're reading all together and then chatting together. So it's a real leveler, that model. And then with some of those groups, we add in creative writing. And we do that in a couple of different ways. In the usual way that you might know, where everybody we read a text and talk about it and then write in response. And in other groups, and I'm going to maybe read you some of those if you'd like,
That'd be lovely, yeah.
the groups write together and the lead reader just puts the text, their language together, so they don't even have to pick up a pen. So we do that in this year. We're running about 1,300 sessions in 7 different locations, from Stranraer to Eyemouth, right up to the islands off of Shetland this year. We're hoping to be on Foula and Fair Isle this year, which would be really great. So
You're
it's,
going to be on Muckleflugger, which is my favourite island of the Shetlands.
I don't know, but given its name, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that the other co-founder might have suspicions about my special interest in the islands projects, given that I love to swim in the sea. So I keep finding locations that I want to swim and thinking, we should have a group there, which so far has happened on Tiree, Uist. Next, I'm checking out Harris. So, yeah.
That's not a
that's
bad
what we
way
do.
to find places, I think, you know.
You've got to do it somehow. Like
Yeah.
I
Somebody has to do it.
I once did a project in Tanzania, and we had to find 3 locations on the size of the UK basically, and I did it by throwing 3 grains of rice at the map, and then we got our 3 locations. And
How did that work out for you, Ben?
There's a lot of stinging nettles, and it was not great.
I recommend looking for swimming spots instead in future.
or nice restaurants or something.
Yeah. So so that's what we're up to. And in the lockdown, we've turned most of those groups to online groups. We were really an analog organization working. So I would work in places like libraries and with refugees and migrants and homeless shelters and women's shelters, all sorts of places that aren't naturally online. So when the virus hit, we thought we probably would stop because we were really very analog, using actual texts and handing them out. But actually, we've managed to get most of those groups online because so many people just said we want to meet anyway. Most of the people that come to our sessions are people who really need them for all kinds of reasons. But people come and say, this is the only thing I do all week. It's the only time I hear my voice all week. You know, things like that. But it's a real loneliness project, really. And really what we're doing, although this isn't a very secret way to say it, but what we're really doing is using the text as a way of helping people make connections and build communities. It's really a community building project more than a literary project. Don't tell our literature funders, but that's really what we're up to, is putting people together in a room. And almost without exception, we've managed to get everybody back online. In fact, this year, even the women's shelters that we couldn't get online are going to be back online as of next month. So we were managing to get everybody online, zooming in as people get more and more comfortable with this technology. There are some places where digital poverty is so strong that we're not able to run Zoom sessions. We do phone calls or we do email groups, but that's really rare. Largely, we're getting everybody together in Zoom, which is amazing.
Yeah, and it is so important, especially at this time, for reaching out to those people who are lonely and don't have those things in their lives. You know?
I guess it's that the background motivation for setting it up has really been forced to the front of it during this time. So,
and what's happened is we've caught people who might otherwise not actually get out to a group, who are homebound for other reasons. So what's happened is we've got people who wouldn't be able to come out to a normal group, and I think we'll carry on doing things online long term. It's true for lots of organizations, including Wigtown Book Festival, to think about how we manage how the successes of the digital part. So that what's happened is we've caught lots of people who wouldn't be able to come, and also put people together in a group from all over the world, which has been really nice. Our Scots group has people dialing in from all over the world. Our Jen Hadfield's group for us in Shetland, in Shetland, has got people from like all over Norway and other places logging in. So that's been a really nice thing too. It's been surprisingly nice.
That's one of the things about like the festival going online this year. Like it's really, I went out to the Ghost Marquee on Thursday, and it would have been filled with people, but there was no one there, and so it felt quite heart-wrenching. But the other way to look at it is that this year it's actually opened up the festival to people around the world. So I can see on our comment list we've got people in Taiwan,
so nice.
Yinglu. Listening in, people in Ireland, but people from all over the world, people listening from around the corner in the Old Bank Bookshop and various other places in Wigtown to right the way across the other side of the world, and that's kind of quite interesting actually. There's a new thing this year. It's different and there's a lot missing, but there's a new thing happening, which is
we get
really
to
nice.
We get to include people. I was going to say that we couldn't include otherwise, which is really lovely. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, Marjorie, would you mind reading a couple of the things that have come out from those creative writing?
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you want to try a shared reading session, although you can't join in the same way, you can find us online and join our sessions. But the other founder and I have recorded the Wigtown Book Festival podcast that's being released this afternoon. We're looking at one of Chitra Ramaswamy's pieces in it and a piece of poetry by Alicia Pir Mohammed. So if you want to see what it's like, we were basically running an open book session between us and chatting about the texts, reading them aloud. So if you want to try that, just listen in today. But I thought I would read you some of the work, just 3 little poems that were all done by groups. So there's not one particular voice, but 3 different voices. This one's done by our group in Brora, run by our terrific lead reader there, Liz Treacher. It's called A Bus Ticket to Nowhere. I met the sea at the bus stop, wild seaweedy hair, tungles from a stormy sea. He drifted past, a spume of salty scent, a long green iridescent coat, a frothy lace collar, rocky boots with tiptoe shells. Piercing eyes followed me, seeping into my mind, saturating my thoughts, swirling, rippling like ice cream, rushing to the shore, ebbing pebbles, rattling jewels. The tide turned. On the whisper of a wave he moved away, but carried a mermaid's purse. So that's a lovely little one.
Wow.
I thought I would read a really funny one. I'm always amazed when people write funny poems, and this one comes from our Stranraer group, so I thought it was local, but it's funny, and it's called Never Again. I think it's a little negative, but I think I read it as funny. They'll probably correct us. You'll get a message very shortly, I'm sure. Never again. Never again will I try climbing a tree I don't know how to get down from. Never again will I try to wear backless sandals, or accept the bet to drink a quarter of a litre of plum brandy. Never again will I try to take the dog for a walk on a moped. Never again will I try. I think it's very sweet.
Very good.
Oh, that's such a devastating end to that poem.
I know.
It obviously didn't work.
But it's fun. It's very funny. It's
funny.
And I think it's rare that you get a good funny poem. So I thought I would try that out from Galloway, from Dumfries and Galloway. And then the last one is from a group of women at the Mary Hill Integration Network, which were due to be a part of the festival this year. And this is they're a group of women who hail from all over the world, usually 20 nations amongst the 20 women, varying degrees of English. And we talk about something and then they all talk and the writer usually writes it down. So this will be the lead reader, Catherine McKinnon, writing for them, but it's entirely their words. It's called New Beginning. That time we all heard it, a song at the river, sharp stones under rain on the trees. We sang Lay Down, Sister, the last time we sang. We put the song into many languages. We had so much power. One woman fell and we lifted her up. We sang for the tired leader. Like us, she needs to rest. Slow time. Breathe into the present. Walking, praying, wading into the water. Carrying this vision of hope, roses, the unknown.
Lovely.
Yeah, so that's the gang of Mary Hill Integration Network, women online from all over the world writing this together. So that's a great example of what the groups are up to.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you so much for sharing those with us, Marjorie. They're so powerful. And every time I hear you talk about the project and the people that you work with, it's so powerful, and it just opens up your mind to what the different groups are out there and who is, who's capable of all this creativity as well.
Yeah. It's a lovely thing to tap, and we're doing it. Yeah, we're really lucky to do it. We do lots with the Wigtown Book Festival too, I should say. Tomorrow we'll be in the HMP Dumfries looking at some of the work of the festival and taking in some of the events as well and sharing those with the guys there. So we're down here doing lots of work in Lothlorien, which Ben knows because he's done some of that reading with us, and lots of different places in this area too. So we feel really privileged to be able to do this work with a whole variety of people. So yeah, it's a joy. Thanks for giving me a chance to chat about it. I could talk about it forever.
And Marjorie, I was going to say I'm going to be at there's a foraging course this morning, which I think is fully booked up, but I'm going to be at Garliston Beach this afternoon. So if you fancied a swim,
Yes, please. I'd love that. So
we could do that, and I could ask our friends that we'll be with, and maybe we'll do that before we head home. But I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
yeah, no, that would be
I'll
great. I
just
should
get
say
home.
too, the podcast yesterday includes Vicky and Anna talking about swimming as well. So wild swimming. So if you want to hear stories rather than join us swimming, you can listen to the experts. But yes, please go swim.
Great.
So Marjorie, we've picked a song that responds to the Open Book Project, and it was actually written. We've only played it once and a half this morning, but it was written a couple of years ago for the Derby Book Festival, and they've got a project. Well, they've got an English course that's open to like young arrivals from foreign countries to Britain, including many refugees, and the Lexis course is like an English course, but every year during the Derby Book Festival they produce a book of their writing, and their writing is often about their experiences of coming and arriving in this strange country using English, which they haven't been able to write in English before. And often they're funny stories or totally different about anything, but it's a real mix of stories written by new arrivals for whatever reason to Derby, and we wrote a song inspired by that collection of new writing by these people, called A New Friend of Mine, and we're going to attempt to play it. Okay, so here we go.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.
Okay.
Tell your story as these words align.
Perfect. Thank you. That was perfect and perfectly beautiful. Thank you for
Thank you.
singing
I
it.
think
Yeah.
I think it's one of only 2 songs we've written with full-on power chords in. Should get my electric guitar out, really. Thank you so much, Marjorie.
No, it's a
Well,
pleasure. Thank you.
turning to our third most esteemed guest here, Davy Zui, with one of the coolest surnames I think I've ever seen, spelling-wise. Very cool.
It's
Davy, so
it,
go on, sorry.
I was going to say it's a very cool name, but it comes with its own challenges.
Well, it's always at the end of the
My name is
register.
Davy
That's your-
Ziv, spelled
Okay.
ZYW, which is but you can always find me at the end of the alphabet, or end of the phone book, rather.
Exactly. You should be in a band, and it would always be the sort of the last record on the thing at the end. So, Davy, if I understand it rightly,
Exactly.
you have got certainly have one of the best jobs in the world, which was to buy tons of prosecco. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Well, not just. Luckily for me, it's not just prosecco. But no, I'm fortunate enough to be a wine bar, and I work with sparkling wines from all over the world. Champagne, for one, but also the fantastic plethora of different wines which are available from Italy, which of course are our favorite currently in the UK is prosecco. So I've bought a lot of bottles, several tens of millions
Well,
of bottles
you look
over
well
the
on
last
it.
few years for
Like
the
it
UK.
doesn't seem to have affected your skin too much. And there's a glow of sunshine on you, and you're outdoors, which we would definitely not be. Whereabouts are you calling in from this morning?
I'm calling in. So again, I was expecting to be. I'm slightly underprepared today because I was expecting to be on this call in a month's time. But no. So I am at my
Wow.
uncle's
Oh,
farm in
wow.
Tuscany
We're not jealous at all, are
currently,
we?
which is a very yes, it's a very special place to be, and it seems quite particularly in the current climate. I feel very fortunate to be where I am because we booked these flights some months ago when we weren't sure about if we were going to make it or not, and lucky enough, the flight corridor is still open to Italy. So here we are. So although it's a holiday, I've just been told that the olive oil harvest is very early this year. So I'm going to have to
Get
go
to
down and
work.
clean the cantina and pick
Oh,
some olives this
that's
afternoon.
wonderful. And
The rest of the week.
does your uncle have grapes there as well that he makes sparkling wine from?
Yeah, so there's a few grapes, but it's generally just for family consumption rather than selling. But the family business out here is
Nice.
extra virgin olive
Nice.
oil.
And so you've written a book about a few years ago about, was it champagne?
Yeah, so I'm fine. Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have I've been to Wigtown twice. Well, at the book festival twice. My first book, I Love Champagne, was funnily enough only on champagne and the virtues of. And then latterly, just 3 years ago, my book called 101 Sparkling Wine to Drink Before You Die, and that was more of a journey through all the sparkling wines of the world. So looking at champagne as a focus, which of course is the benchmark of all sparkling wine. But the book was really about exploring the fact that there are some incredible sparkling wines made from all over the world, from Italy to Etna to Chile to South Africa to more homegrown, in fact, on the south in Wales now and in the south of England. So it's exploring all the
I
best
made
sparkling wines
some
to drink.
elderflower sparkling wine in Wigtown. Would that count? Okay.
I'd have to taste it and give you my professional
I put a lot of
qualitative
sugar in, so
assessment.
it tasted
But
great.
Ben, mark my words. Next
I'm
time I'm in
afraid we
Wigtown,
drunk it all,
we'll
so
drink
we're
a
gonna
glass
have to
together.
wait till
Next year.
next.
Yeah.
We had explosions.
It must have been good then.
It was properly sparkly.
Fantastic. Yeah, the
To
fermentation
go
went
on.
You should
awfully
have
well
seen
then.
Ben had to go in with a full-on welding suit because he was scared the other bottles might explode. So he was fully protected while going to release the air.
Oh my goodness. That's why champagne for a long time was called the devil's wine because before they really understood the science behind the secondary fermentation in bottle, which of course there's as much pressure in a champagne bottle as a car tire. It's very dangerous. if you don't handle it correctly. So I mean, there was many deaths throughout history about people going down to the cellars and bottles breaking, corks smashing, and
Well,
hitting
exactly. Everyone laughed at
people in
me
eyes.
for
So you were right. You're right to get the right
everyone
protection,
laughed, and
Beth.
I looked ridiculous. But what was funny, because I made the stupid error of like thinking, oh, do you know, this year I'll do it in glass bottles because they'll be fancy, and I've done it 3 years in a row, and none of them have exploded. So in the plastic bottles, so I think I'm ready, and I wasn't. But what was really funny was that I kind of made my way. I made various attempts to go and open it, and then. When I got to the other bottles, I was so scared about opening it. I was like, oh. And I flipped the lid, and it went, and all of it. It was just one freak bottle.
It might have just fallen off the shelf.
Might have just fallen off the shelf. Anyway, I'll post that photo up later to my own undoing. And Adrian tells me you've been on a huge cycle ride recently that's worthy of a mention.
Yes, so outside of my wine buying and book writing credentials, I'm a very, very keen cyclist. But I'll give you a bit of context because it wasn't from a good place. I suppose it came a very positive project, but I was diagnosed with motor neuron disease just over 2.5 years ago, which has been very difficult to get my head around, and of course for my family and loved ones too. And there's some very stark, very difficult statistics when you receive such a bombshell, which is one of them is 50% of people die within 2 years of receiving the diagnosis. But 2 years on, I completed a 500-mile bike ride in 4 days with my brothers and good friends to, I suppose, celebrate life and the fact that I'm one of the luckier ones. And of course, I've got youth and health and fitness on my side. So we were raising money for My Name's Doddy, which is a charity started by rugby legend, Scottish rugby legend, Doddy Weir, who was diagnosed just a year before I was with the same disease. So we were fundraising for My Name's Doddy to aid research and awareness for motor neuron disease. And we were supposed to embark back in, sorry, you hear the noise, it's a tractor coming, my uncle and a tractor coming past, just beside me here.
I love it. I feel like I'm in Tuscany.
Yeah, but we were supposed to do this cycle ride in May, and then, of course, something happened called COVID or lockdown. So it was postponed sort of indefinitely. But what that enabled us to do was get behind the fundraising that little bit more, and of course, do a lot more training, which during lockdown was very much in isolation or in turbo trainers indoors, rather than out in the group of riders who we are embarking on the 4-day ride with. But we were very lucky, so we postponed just to August. So in mid-August, we departed from Inverness to circumnavigate the northwest and east coast of Scotland, the North Coast 500, which of course it's a road which has always been there, but it's been branded very, very well over the last few years. And I can tell you from a month on now that it's quite hilly, as we all know. So it's quite a bumpy route. So you over the 500 miles, you climb more than 32,000 feet, which is actually over the height of Mount Everest. So it's quite a challenging cycle for any keen or professional cyclist, let alone someone with motor neuron disease. But the weather was very, very kind to us, and we completed our 4-day cycle unscathed.
Wow.
Only 3 punctures and about 2,000 midgie bites later.
Well
How
done.
many midgies did you eat?
Oh,
Down the hill.
countless midges. Oh, I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the West Coast growing up, and fantastic to hear Marjorie about some of the Highlands and Islands, and the fantastic work she's doing. But I've forgotten how bad midges can get, and being from Edinburgh, we don't get too many midges down there, and but it was particularly when you're particularly on the second day, we're just past the Applecross, we're past Aquatubui on the way to Kinlochhew, beautiful part of the world, but in the golden hour, obviously the midges come out to play. So we're climbing on these hills. We have to be out of the saddle because the hills are so steep. You can't sit and down and spin it through, and you look down because you can't take your hand off the bars. You look down and your arms are just black with midges, and you can't get them off, because if you come off your bike, you'll have to walk the way up. So there's a few challenging moments on the route for sure, but the midges were the main reason for that.
Oh my goodness. I had a very similar, well, not similar torture, but I was playing my cello in the forest, but I had that thing of not being able to get them because I was playing and I was recording, and I had to keep going until I'd finished, and then at the end go, ah!
It takes a lot of mental strength.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain, but it sounds like you had to fight against a lot of things. So congratulations, Davey.
Yeah.
That's
And apparently
amazing.
you raised an absolutely staggering amount in that time.
It's been, the whole thing's been a huge success. I'm very humbled by the amount of, I suppose, emotional investment as well as the monetary that we managed to secure over the last few months. So I wrote this Just Giving page, which was back in January, which is quite a therapeutic exercise anyway, just trying to get some of my feelings about what I'm going through down in words. And I set up the Just Giving page, and I set an ambitious target of £5,000 to reach. And last time I checked, I think we're £119,000 we've managed to raise, over the last 6 months, which is just
And is that still open now?
It's still open now. So if anyone, any kind listener or watcher right now would like to read a little bit about the story and about my story and about the journey we've been through, I'd urge you to go to either our Instagram page, which probably has the most information, which is Instagram, /ride4mmd, or our Just Giving page is justgiving.com/mmd500. So we'll make sure it's put in the comments or on the website later, and we'll if you could check that out, that would be fantastic. So any pounds or pennies are gratefully received.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure when we'll put a tweet out at the end with links to everyone's Hugh's, Marjorie's, and yours podcasts and that story. It'd be really interesting for people to read. Are you, just to finish off, Dave? Are you doing any writing any new books during this time?
Yeah, in fact, lockdown gave me as I was one of the everyone's had different experiences during lockdown, but I was although I'm very busy back at work now, I was with the restaurant trade in hibernation. I was put on furlough for a few weeks, so it gave me a fantastic chance to put pen to paper, and I'd like to I'd very much like to have my next book around the fantastic wines of where I'm sitting now, and that's the most fascinating, interesting, complex wine country in the world, which is of course Italy.
Well, we look forward to that, and I look forward especially to the Italian wine tasting event that you'll no doubt be running next year at the Wigtown Book Festival. Really quite thrilled about the prospect of that.
And we'll drink your elderflower wine afterwards.
Absolutely,
Great,
I'll
the new
make
vintage.
sure. I'll hold it back. So we're thinking what song to play for you, and we thought a Journey song might be nice. And it's a song inspired by a book that I don't think. Oh no, here it is. The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which is by Rachel Joyce, and it's about a man who receives a letter from an old friend of his who informs him that she is in the process of passing away and she's writing to say goodbye. And Harold writes a letter back, kind of sending his pre-condolences, and goes to post it in his local postbox, but he realizes that this is not enough effort for this moment for this friend, and so he decides it's a gesture to walk one more postbox further, even though he's dressed in his pajamas, to post the letter. And eventually just I don't want to spoil it, but anyway,
he starts in Kingsbridge in Devon and walks a long way.
A long way, a long journey to hand deliver this letter. And but there's a wonderful moment in this book where he's a young man and he's dancing in a bar, he's having a great time, probably drinking some champagne or some delicious Tuscan wine. He's dancing, having a great time. And it's the night on which he meets his wife-to-be, Maureen, and Maureen looks around and sees this idiot dancing on the dance floor and is intrigued by him, watches him dancing. And Harold notices Maureen watching him, but doesn't worry too much about it and carries on dancing. But at the end of the night, they start talking. One thing leads to another, and so begins another sort of relationship story within the book. But I was thinking when I read that, if you knew that was the moment in your life when you met your wife-to-be, There's no way I would have carried on dancing like an idiot. I would have stopped and attempted to sort out my hair and prop myself at the bar and tried to look cool, and well, anyway, would have been a complete disaster. So this song is inspired by all of that, and it's our journey song for you, Davey, and it's called How Not to Woo a Woman. It was on that fateful day you saw me dancing in the bar. Your eyes caught mine, and so I came and whispered in your ear. I hadn't thought of what to say or what you seemed to me, but it seemed to go pretty well, and we left early. We've on now 7 months, and we were married by the shore. The two of us together, we never wanted more. I'll get a job to feed us and a home to keep us warm, and in a year or so I think our children will be born. So onwards 7 years and our little boy's 5. I used to think I'd save him, but at least he's still alive. We'll have our ups and downs, but I know our love will win. So I never leave this journey, not even at the end of Fast forward 20 years and I'll have been a lucky man. Our children will have grown and left the house back in our hands. We'll grow up by the seaside and we'll drink tea in the car, and I picture us beneath the grave in each other's arms. But now I catch myself as I am dancing in the bar, a little overthinking and perhaps a stage too far. I'll just enjoy the moment anymore, and I would be too scared to dance like a fool, and you'd never see me.
That was wonderful.
Very good.
I'm
thanks,
usually that
Davey.
dancing fool.
Perfect. We knew that's why we chose the song. Well, thank you so much to all of our guests this morning. Hugh Macmillan, Marjorie Lotfi-Gill and Davey... I'm not going to get your surname wrong.
Jiv.
Jiv. Thank you, Davey Jiv. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward... I'll post up links to the podcast and also to the Just Giving page and the Instagram story for Davey there. But thank you so much to everyone who's joined us online, on Facebook, on YouTube, on the Wigtown Book Festival site. It's getting windy over there, Davey.
The door's going.
But until tomorrow morning, everyone, enjoy the rest of the festival. Do find out what's happening today, and see you all tomorrow morning. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheerio.
Molly.
Cheerio.